The Indian government has announced a significant fiscal push to accelerate higher ethanol blending in petrol by exempting E22, E25, E27 and E30 fuels from central excise duty. And according to an official notification from the Ministry of Finance, petrol blended with 22% to 30% ethanol will now attract nil excise duty, effectively removing multiple levies that were earlier applicable. And all these include basic central excise duty, special additional excise duty, road and infrastructure cess, and the agriculture infrastructure and development cess. And all these exemption applies only when the blended fuel conforms to Bureau of Indian Standards, that is BIS specification IS 19850, which has recently been updated to formally include higher ethanol blends. And under the revised framework, E22 contains 22% ethanol and 78% petrol. E25 contains 25% ethanol, E27 contains 27% ethanol and E30 contains 30% ethanol. And all the four categories will now benefit from zero central excise duty, marking one of the most notable policy incentives yet for higher ethanol blends in India. And the move forms part of a broader strategy in order to expand India's ethanol blending program beyond the current E20 target. The country had initially aimed to achieve 20% ethanol blending in petrol by 2030, but this goal has already been advanced to the 2025-2026 ethanol supply year. Blending levels have steadily increased in recent years, reaching close to 18% in the latest cycle, driven by higher production and improved supply chain capacity. Officials now indicate that the next phase of the program will involve scaling up to the higher blends such as E22 and beyond. The timing of the tax exemption is significant as it follows the Bureau of Indian Standards' recent notification of technical specification for E22 to E30 fuels, and all these updated standards define key parameters, including ethanol content limits, octane ratings, sulfur thresholds, testing procedures, and the safety requirements. Together, the BIS norms and the excise duty exemption create both the regulatory and financial framework that is necessary for the wider commercial adoption of higher ethanol blended petrol across the country. And the policy is largely driven by India's heavy dependence on imported crude oil, which accounts for nearly 90% of the nation's oil consumption. And in recent years, volatility in global oil prices, geopolitical tensions and supply disruptions have increased concerns over the energy security. Policymakers view ethanol as a strategic alternative that can reduce import dependence, lower foreign exchange outflows and improve domestic energy resilience. Ethanol, produced mainly from sugarcane, maize and other agricultural feedstocks, is seen as a dual benefit fuel. It not only reduces reliance on crude oil but also generates additional income streams for the farmers and supports rural economies. Government officials have repeatedly highlighted that expanding ethanol blending contributes to both the environmental sustainability and the agricultural growth, making it a key pillar of India's long-term energy transition strategy. And in parallel, the government has also begun introducing E85 fuel for flex fuel vehicles, which contains up to 85% ethanol. And this fuel is being rolled out at select public sector fuel stations and is intended for specially designed vehicles that can operate on varying ethanol blends. And the introduction of E85 reflects the government's broader intent to move towards a flexible multi-blend fuel ecosystem where vehicles can run efficiently on different ethanol petrol combinations that ranges from E20 to E100. However, the transition has not been without challenges, as while ethanol is widely promoted as a cleaner and domestically produced fuel, concerns persist regarding vehicle compatibility, mileage impact and long-term engine performance, especially in the older vehicles. And some consumers have reported reduced fuel efficiency after the introduction of higher blends like E20. Industry bodies, however, maintain that while mileage variations may occur, the fuel does not pose safety risks to modern engines. The government has largely dismissed opposition to higher ethanol blending, arguing that the transition has been carefully evaluated and implemented in consultation with the industry stakeholders. It has also rejected demands for the parallel availability of the unblended petrol, stating that the shift is necessary for long-term energy security and economic sustainability. Pricing remains another debated issue. Although ethanol is often perceived as a cheaper alternative to petrol, official data has shown that procurement costs of ethanol have at times been higher than the cost of refined petrol on a weighted average basis. And this has complicated expectations that higher ethanol blending would automatically translate into the lower retail fuel prices for the consumers. And despite all these challenges, India continues to steadily expand its ethanol production capacity and blending infrastructure. Investment in distilleries and improved procurement systems and policy support have significantly increased ethanol availability in the recent years. The government is also working to align regulatory frameworks and fuel standards in order to ensure a smoother transition towards higher blends. Officials view this shift as part of a broader structural transformation in India's energy landscape, and the goal is not only to reduce crude oil imports, but also to strengthen domestic fuel production, support agricultural stakeholders, and contribute to the climate commitments through lower carbon emissions. And with excise duty exemptions now extended to E30 and technical standards already in place, India has effectively laid the groundwork for moving beyond the E20 milestone. And the current policy direction signals a long-term transition rather than a short-term adjustment, indicating a shift in how the country approaches fuel consumption, energy independence and sustainable development in the coming years. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe to the channel.